Welcome to the Revenue Cycle Rundown with Keybridge Medical Revenue Care. Our live show features respected industry experts that will take us on a deeper dive into today's hottest rev cycle topics. We're glad you're here for the rundown. Let's get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Brian Garver from Keybridge Medical Revenue Care. I'm reporting live out of Lima, Ohio. Excited to be here today, excited to be part of such a great industry, and excited for our guest today. I'd like to welcome Dr. Tabitha Hapeman. She's from WVU Health. She's a revenue cycle expert and a leadership expert, an author, an RN. She has lots of background, which we're going to learn about today. But lots going on in the industry. As a matter of fact, we're in that season of HFMA events.
Yes.
There's been events going on in Kentucky and West Virginia and Florida and Georgia and Alabama. And this week we'll be at Region 6, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is the Ohio, Michigan region for HFMA. Keybridge is excited to be there. We're a proud sponsor. We'll also be exhibiting, and there'll be 4 of us from our team there. So any of you Ohio or Michigan folks, please come say hi to us and tell us you saw us on the show. When you stop by, I'll have a special little gift for you. So, Dr. Hapeman, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So I learned about you through HFMA, actually. You're kind of on the speaking circuit. You've been out there buzzing and speaking about some really interesting and important topics in healthcare. So let's just start with, tell us about you, who you are, your background. Give us that story, please.
Sure. The elevator speech about me, right? So my name is Dr. Tabitha Hapeman. I've been a nurse now for, I hate to admit it, but a little over 15 years. I've been a nurse. I've been in leadership for about 10 of those years. Most of that time in leadership, I've been in utilization review and case management. I also have my doctorate in nursing practice, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
Wow. Anything else on there? Mom, a dog owner. Yes, all those things too,
yep.
Right?
And all of those other life-related, the life-related titles.
Yes. We were chatting about that too. Dr. Hapeman and I were chatting last week, and we were just talking about some of the exciting things we do with our kids. And she was telling me about this almost died camping trip that they took. The kids always kind of have their way of making things seem even more exciting than what they were. But yeah, you've got the personal stuff going on too with the family, right?
I promise you they're slightly hyperbolic. They did not actually almost die. I assure everyone listening. But no, we do all the, fun family stuff. I really love to travel with my kids. And, it's really important to have that work-life balance or integration, depending on your philosophy.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the travel and the kids things, our youngest daughter, Olivia, turned 21 this summer, back on June 25th. Well, for all of you HFMA people out there, June 25th typically is when HFMA National is going on. And sure enough, it was in Las Vegas, June 25th. So what did Brian Garver do? He brought the whole family to Vegas, and we got to celebrate our youngest daughter's 21st birthday there. It was awesome. We still talk about it. It was a great time.
You couldn't ask for a better place to celebrate your 21st birthday.
No. We always joke about Vegas. It's one of those places where, about 4 nights tops is, that's really the limit. You got to get the heck out of there while you're still alive.
Yeah, then it's time to go home and rest.
Yeah. While you're still alive and you're not broke.
That's right.
So, hey, let's talk about some of the things you've been presenting and speaking on at HFMA. I know speaking about personal growth and teaching and leadership and how to bring the troops, help them climb the mountain has been something you're passionate about. Doctor, tell us a little bit about how that's gone for you.
It's gone so well. I'm really blessed to be part of a system that truly pours into its leaders and its potential leaders. And I think we're in this really exciting season of growth and succession planning and being very mindful about those things. So it's really exciting to be a part of a system genuinely invested in those kinds of programs.
Well, if you think about it, our greatest asset in healthcare is our people.
That's right.
There is no greater. I mean, technology has come a long way. Now we're talking about automation and AI, but still at the end of the day, you win with people, or you could lose too.
That's right.
So I love getting into the minds of folks like you, where you see that, understand that, and that's really the emphasis of the things you typically speak about, right?
That's right. I think Sir Richard Branson really said it very well when he said, if you take care of your people, they're going to take care of your outcomes, right? So our people are the ones doing the work. They're the ones that are our client facing or our frontline staff, right? We tend to use that terminology a lot, frontline or boots on the ground staff. And without them doing the work every single day, we're not going to have excellent patient outcomes. We're not going to have excellent patient experiences. So I think it's really critical to care for our staff and to put them first above ourselves.
Well, how do you do that? How do you develop future leaders? How do you develop? How do you hone and fine tune existing leaders? I mean, what are some of the critical things you think that part of that?
I really feel like we need to hire for values and characteristics. So we can train for skills, right? Now, certainly there are minimum skills that you need to have when you first come into a role, and we need to define what those minimum skills are. Maybe it's computer literacy, maybe it's language, whatever it is. But we cannot train for values and we can't train for characteristics, right? You are who you are. So if your values are teamwork, communication, interdisciplinary collaboration, if those are your values, then my job as a leader is to teach you how to harness those things. How do I manifest those values in the setting that you're in, right? So I think it all really starts with our hiring practices. Who are we looking for, right? From all levels of leadership. What is our recruitment process? How are we assessing for those kinds of things? Are we using behavioral-based interviewing questions? And I think that becomes even more important when we're looking for potential leaders. And ideally, we have those leaders in the pipeline before that position's even posted. So we know who's going to apply. We know who they are as people and the kind of work they're doing. And I think that's really the core of succession planning. Not necessarily cherry picking, but we know, hey, these are the 4 or 5 people in my division, perhaps, that are just really excellent. They're excellent communicators, they're excellent vision setters, they're excellent goal setters, and they know how to work with people. Those are the folks that I want to interview when my next position comes open.
Well, you use the word, their values. Would you align that with a person's beliefs, their inner, what they really stand for and believe in? I mean, is that how you would define their values?
The definition of values is absolutely your core belief system. So I do a lot of values work as a nurse practitioner. It's one of my favorite types of work to do with my clients. And it's really trying to help people figure out, what are your core beliefs and are you living in line with those core beliefs, right? So if your core belief, let's say, is teamwork and family, those are 2 of your really core values. Well, if you're working in a job where you're mostly isolated, there's very little teamwork going on, and frankly, you're working 50, 60 hours a week, and you don't have a lot of time to spend with your family. Are you going to be inherently happy or dishappy, right? Or unhappy, I should say, in that role? You're going to be inherently unhappy because there's a value mismatch between how you're living and your core beliefs. And so that lack of authenticity can really come through as disengagement or lack of happiness.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on a term that's been thrown around now for 20 years, but I study it a lot and I keep going back to it. But that term is servant leadership. How is that relevant still today? Because it's been out there and talked about for a long time. How do you feel it's still relevant? And is it relevant? Is it something that you continue to teach and talk about?
I think all leadership philosophies are relevant. And I don't know that there is a better leadership philosophy than anything else. I think it's very situational, right? So you might be someone who is a servant leadership in one moment, but transformational in another. And I think that's okay. And we need to hold space that we can grow and change and be different leaders depending on what the situation is called upon. In general, I think the concept of servant leadership, as it's been kind of proliferated, as you say, for 20 years, right? It's been around for a really long time. The concept is putting your team's needs above your own needs. And I think that goes back to the core of humility, right? Are we putting the needs of our team above the needs of ourselves? And whatever that looks like in the moment. So I think that's absolutely still very relevant.
Yeah, agreed. I'm a big student of that. I think one of the things that really stood out to me about you was when we were chatting was your thought process on how we grow, how we become better leaders. And you talked about the concept of growing through being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another concept that's been around for a really long time, right? The first person that I can find that actually quoted that was Peter Williams. He was a self-help author. He offered, I think, 40 books. And he wrote, "We're not growing unless we're uncomfortable." And you see that same terminology over and over again, right? We can even go back to the 60s. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote something along those lines, right? You have to go out every day and do something that makes you afraid. And so there's this really interesting belief, especially in our society, and I think it rings true, that we are growing the most when we're putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, which makes sense, right? If we think about it intuitively, if we're in a comfortable situation and we have our nice little, warm blanket or little box that we've put ourselves in, there's no need for us to kind of spread our wings, right? And get some more elbow room. We can kind of become complacent. When we're uncomfortable, that's when you get into those stretch goals, right, as we like to call them, or you get into those SMART goals where we start thinking about, okay, how can I go a little bit further or a little bit wider or a little bit more influence? What does this look like to challenge myself? And I think all challenges are inherently uncomfortable. But if we lean into them, that's when we're actually growing as people, professionally and personally.
Amen to that. A big amen and standing ovation, really, because in my experience, I really believe that we all have dreams, right? We aspire to do great things. Yet, why do only some people end up getting there, going there, or even attempting to go there? And to me, in my experience, and what I've seen is exactly what you're saying. It's just the willingness and commitment of a person to finally say, you know what? My dreams live in the work that I've been maybe putting off. For it to happen, I've got to step into this and out of my normal daily routine. Why is it so hard for people, do you think?
I think there's a great book written about just what you're talking about, which is Grit, by Angela Duckworth, I think was the author. And Grit is a fantastic book. So it's really talking about why do certain people become what we consider great and others don't? And is it related to inherent talent, right? Is it just you're born with this amazing talent and therefore you're going to be great one day? And she found rather counterintuitively, it's the opposite. The folks that aren't born with those really amazing levels of natural given talents are the ones that tend to actually progress further in their fields. And it's because they're willing to work harder. So when I think about grit, I really think about it as the willingness to endure and the ability to understand your priorities. And if you have those two things, you understand I have 12 different things on my plate, but these 2 or 3 things simply don't serve the ultimate goal. And therefore, I'm taking them off the plate, right? So I know my priorities and I'm willing to endure hardship. And if I'm willing to do both of those things, we're going to have grit and we're going to grow. We're going to be able to reach amazing levels of success.
I love that. We could go talk about grit and that human behavior for hours.
For hours.
I would be totally fascinated by it. I was at a conference last spring in Chicago. It was a orthopedic executive conference. And there was a speaker there who has done some TED Talks and has over 1 million views of their one particular TED Talk called "I Hope You Fail" was the name of the TED Talk. And I loved it because it's exactly what you're describing about being gritty and being able to overcome that, and how those are the best learning opportunities any of us will have in our lifetime is through being uncomfortable, in going through a difficult challenge, falling down, failing, and then learning from it, and then going again with this new learned thought process. Yeah.
People tend to think about failure as a brick wall, right? I hit this brick wall and I can't get beyond it. But failure is actually a stepping stone, right? We're all going to fail. It's part of human nature. That's okay. As long as we're failing forward, right? As long as we're failing upward, as long as we're growing from it, then failure is just a normal part of our development.
So tell us a little bit about your upcoming speaking event. I think it's at the West Virginia HFMA event coming up soon.
That's right.
It's a little bit of a different topic. Tell us about give us a sneak peek on that, I guess.
Sure. So that one I'm very excited about. I'm really focusing on 3 different kinds of categories when it comes to development: recruiting, retention, and then leadership development. There, if you think of a Venn diagram, they're very intertwined with each other. There's a lot of overlap there. And so we're talking about, how do you go about conceptualizing the entirety of your model? How do you build a culture that's going to attract and retain top talent? Because we're trying to get ready for what I'm going to affectionately call the retirement cliff. Right? That's coming up in healthcare. And we've known about it for a really long time. Our healthcare leaders, the most seasoned of us in healthcare, we're coming up to this point where retirement's going to start looking very attractive to a lot of people, right? And so when that happens, how do we bridge that gap, or even prevent the gap from happening between those that are retiring and those that are ready to step into those roles?
Interesting. Love that. So that's what you're going to be tackling with this group down in West Virginia. When is that again, ballpark?
That is October 3rd.
Okay, right around the corner.
That's right.
Exciting things. Tell us about something else that I know you're excited about, and that's that you have a book coming out.
I do. So I have a book coming out October 1st. So it really tackles everything, well, a lot of the things that I've learned in my leadership journey thus far. So it's really through storytelling. It's called Upwards 10 Essential Leadership Lessons. And it's the 10, what I think are the most important lessons I've learned so far in my career. How to be a good leader, how to be a good person in business. How do you work with people? How do you continue to nurture relationships, right? What is psychological flexibility? What's radical openness? Why do you need these things in your life in order to be successful? And that's what the book talks about.
Psychological flexibility, not psychological safety, which we hear a lot of buzz about. What's the difference between psychological safety and psychological flexibility?
Psychological safety is the culture that we're creating in which people can come forth and ask questions, push back, be vulnerable, right? That's really psychological safety. It's the ability for me to tell you, Brian, I don't know what that is. Can you help me? And I don't feel like you're going to judge me or that there's going to be reprisals. Psychological flexibility is the ability to pivot, right? It's the opposite of rigidity. So psychological rigidity is when we get into this kind of blinders on, very narrow focused. I'm doing this, or I'm committed to X, or this is how I do things. Flexibility is the opposite of that. It's being able to look at a situation and say, you know what, in this situation, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to allow a different side of myself to come out, or I'm going to acknowledge, you know what, this isn't a great outcome, but I don't need to ruminate in that failure. I just need to pivot to something else.
Wow, I love that. And that's one of your 10 essential leadership lessons that you talk about?
It is. Yes.
Okay, we're getting the inside scoop, folks. This is good. Tying that into revenue cycle, healthcare providers across the country are dealing with some very challenging financial times.
Yes, that's a wonderful and nice way to put it right now.
It is a nice way, and many, especially rural health. I mean, they're sitting on a very fine edge between profit and loss, being in the red or the black. And often it can change weekly or even monthly. And it's impacting their ability to provide outstanding healthcare to their communities. So this is a problem in America. The reason I'm bringing it up is because I've seen that rigidity mindset sometimes get in the way.
Yes.
You talk about psychological flexibility, and I'm like, whoa, this is, I got to read this. Because I believe human beings are creatures of habit. What's worked for us in the past, we're going to stay the course and work hard, and we're going to roll up our sleeves, and we're just going to get to work. Well,
that's right.
Sometimes there's a time to pivot, right?
That's right. The tried and true does not always work, right? What worked for us yesterday is not guaranteed to work for us tomorrow. And frankly, it's unlikely to work for us tomorrow, right? And so having that discernment to figure out, okay, what aspects of this are we going to keep? We like it, and either it's going to be evergreen, which could be your mission statement, your vision statement as an organization, and what parts of those things are negotiable, right? And that could be the types of services you provide, the way in which you provide them, how your revenue cycle is structured, right? How you do denials mitigation. There's so many different ways to be creative in that space. And you're right, it's a really tough time for healthcare. The margins are incredibly thin, right? We had a lot of interesting data around where we're sitting for margins. It's around 2%, right? 3% sometimes if you're doing well. And those are some pretty scary numbers from a healthcare perspective.
Well,
And
there's
so
when
I think
America is begging for a better healthcare system and a better healthcare outcome. We all have the horror stories of going to the ER and not having a room available, not having staff available, not having, those things available. And yet, I wonder if America really understands sometimes the financial crisis that's existing, in healthcare.
Absolutely not. Definitely not. So I try to keep my finger on the pulse of that. There's a lot of different social media areas that I tend to lurk in the background, just kind of read what people are saying.
Yeah.
And people do not understand. And I think, I had a leader I worked with a long time ago, and one of her mottos was, you can't boil the ocean. You have to do it one cup at a time, right?
Wow.
And so when we think about all of the myriad challenges of healthcare in America, we can't boil the ocean. There's no way to fix it from the top to bottom, right? We have to choose what areas are we going to try and fix in this moment. And for me, I go back to some psychological workings, right? What's in our circle of control? The things that are within our circle of control are the processes we have in-house, the people we have in-house, how we treat each other, how we attract talent, how we train talent, how we retain talent.
Yeah, amen. Who you surround yourself with, both internally, externally, who you're partnering with, internally, externally, and is the vision and is the open communication there so that you're heading in the same direction, with that same strategy.
That's exactly right.
Interesting. Well, I know your book's going to do very well, and I can't wait to talk about it and get a copy. And speaking of that, how will we be able to find your book and get a copy?
It will be available on Amazon October 1st, and fingers crossed within major retail stores shortly after that.
How exciting. Can I get an autographed copy maybe?
You absolutely can, Brian. I'd be honored.
I love it. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk to you again sometime soon. The power of people is one that's always fascinated me, and it's always been kind of the culture of our organization too. That there's always a better way. I mean, we're pretty good. We're a pretty good company, but our culture challenges us that no, there's a better way. I mean, right now. And what are we going to do today to pivot and find that and search for that and be open and flexible to, getting out of that rigidity, like you talked about, just because it worked last year and the year before and the year before, right?
That's right. That goes back to the Japanese theory of Kaizen, right? Incremental steps towards perfection. And they don't have to be big steps. They can be very small steps. But are we constantly working on moving it forward, doing a little bit better than we did yesterday?
Amen. Where can we find you? We can reach out. We can find you on LinkedIn, right?
You absolutely can. Yes.
Is that the best way to find you out there?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is a great networking tool for all of us to use. It's my favorite social media site. So yes, LinkedIn's fantastic. If you go on Amazon and buy the book, there's also going to be some other ways to contact me in that author bio.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hapeman. This was great. I love the conversation we're having. I can't wait to learn more about psychological flexibility. Right? Yes. That's a new term for me. And so thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Congratulations on the outstanding success that you've had, but even more so, what's to come.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, Brian.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Doctor. We'll see you all soon. Have a great day.